Hi, I'm Matt Burton, Executive Chef from Conagra Foods. I'll be making a chunky tomato bruschetta that's not only impressive, but easy. It's also lower in fat than a traditional bruschetta. First, we're going to start with the bread. We're going to cut this on what's called a biased. All you do is simply place your bread, cut it on an angle. By doing this, you're actually creating a little bit more area for you to put your bruschetta on. It's a great trick to use for vegetables or bread or anything that you're going to be using that you want a little bit bigger surface area. Once you cut your bread, you want to go ahead and put it on a pre-sprayed cookie sheet. And then you're going to take some Pam olive oil and spray it on top of the bread. Gives a little bit more flavor without the added fat. It actually helps add browning to your bread as well. We'll go ahead and put it in the broiler. About 1 to 2 minutes until golden brown, then we'll flip it over and do the other side. After 1 to 2 minutes, and your bread is brown on both sides, go ahead and pull it out of the oven and set it aside to cool for just a moment. Now, while the baguettes are cooling, we're going to go ahead and have some fun here. We're going to make the topping to our bruschetta. What we're going to need is a medium mixing bowl, a strainer, and what we're going to be using today for the main part of our bruschetta is the Hunt's Petite diced tomatoes. Make sure you drain those really, really well. I really like using these petite diced tomatoes. They're much smaller, they're much easier to work with. They work great in this application. You can get a lot of it on the bread. We're draining these. Drain them really, really well. The other part that I want to point out is we're using the plain Hunt's tomatoes for this, but another great application you can use is Hunt's has some unbelievably flavored versions of this, like a basil, garlic, and oregano one. That's phenomenal in this recipe. Go ahead and dump in the tomatoes in the mixing bowl, set that aside. Next ingredient, a little bit of diced onion. Very important in this recipe that you dice the onion very, very small. Nobody likes to bite into a big chunk of onion. Now we're just going to simply mix this up, get the onion mixed up real well, and we're going to set this aside. And then we're going to do the secret ingredient, if you will, for a really good bruschetta, and that's fresh herbs. And it just isn't bruschetta without fresh basil. And I'm going to show you a real simple way of cutting this so it mixes real well and it looks really good in this recipe. What it's called actually is a chiffonade, again, fancy name. All we're going to do is slice it into really, really thin threads. Very, very simple. You just simply roll up the basil into like a jelly roll and you slice it into thin threads. Another little trick that I like to do is really reserve a little bit of this basil, just set it off to the side and take the rest of it and mix it right into your bruschetta topping. Get this mixed up. So it's all combined. I'd like to point out, you could do this a couple days ahead. This can go in the refrigerator. When you're ready to go, toast off your bread. Great for parties. You set this aside. Now, you take your toasted bread, which is cooled just slightly, and what I like to do is I like to take a peeled whole garlic clove and actually just rub it on the side of this bread. You should do that to all of your bread. Take your bruschetta topping and go ahead and top just about a tablespoon or so onto each one. And you'll notice I'm doing this right on the cookie sheet that we baked it on. It makes cleaning up a heck of a lot easier. Now that all your bruschetta is topped, the reserved basil I had you set aside a second ago, go ahead and put a little bit on top of each one. Fresh garnish, fresh flavor. You should smell this. It's amazing. The fresh basil, the garlic, tomatoes, that toasted bread aromas, phenomenal. Now, you could simply serve it as is, but let me show you a couple of things that I like to do to this recipe. I like to finish it off with just a little bit of cracked black pepper. Again, noticing right on the same cookie sheet, a lot easier to clean. And then I just love Parmesan cheese. So, lots of Parmesan cheese right on top, all over, lots of flavor, layers and layers of flavor. Once you're done, simply get your favorite serving platter, put 3 or 4 right on a serving platter, and you're ready to serve. Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Chef Matt Burton from Conagra Foods. I'll be showing you how to make our spicy, crunchy chicken wraps. The first step in this recipe is to bake the banquet chicken tenders in the oven. Simply follow the directions on the package. While these are baking, we'll go ahead and get started on our dressing. First thing you want to do is to